Do you ever wonder if you're rich? Like you might be earning somewhere around the six-figure income, but you feel like you're nowhere near being well off. Well, in this video, I'll reveal what it takes to be in the top 20%, 10%, 5%, and 1% in Australia, not only in income, but also in superannuation, home equity, and net worth. I'll also be discussing the ways the top 1% build their wealth and how you can too. Quick disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. Everything I share here is just my personal opinion for education and entertainment. Always do your own research before investing. Let's start with income, the matrix most people use, but in reality, the most accurate one includes income and net worth. With income, I'm getting my data from the ATO, and this data only reflects declared income. But in reality, there are many people, particularly in industries like construction, who underreport their earnings through cash jobs or other means. So while the data give us a baseline, the true income distribution is likely higher than what's officially reported. Let's start with the individual income. So for individuals, the median income is $61,264. However, the top 20% earns a whopping $102,000, the top 10% earns $137,000, and the top 5% earns $179,000. And lastly, the top 1% earns a whopping $353,000. Now, of course, individual income that I just mentioned is only applicable for comparison if you're single. However, as you get older and as you get a partner, the real matrix of success is dependent on what a household actually makes altogether. Now, the median household income makes around $103,000, the top 20% makes $223,000, the top 10% makes $272,000, and the top 5% makes $305,000, while the top 1% makes a whopping $531,000 for a household. Now, if you think, oh wow, there's such a big gap between the top 1% and the rest, you're probably right. The top 10% of household takes home more than 3 times the average, as well as 6 times the lowest 20%. Also, nearly half of all wealth is held by the top 10% of households, and they hold 15 times the wealth of the lowest 60%. Now, knowing how rich the top 10% of Australians are, you might wonder, what jobs do they do? Well, the top earners tend to be company owners and directors, as you might have expected, earning anywhere from $1 million and above. And you go a bit below that and you get CEOs earning $700,000. You go one step below that and you get roles like head of treasury earning $510,000. And you get head of HR around $400,000. And also you get property development director earning anywhere around $300K to $340K. And lastly, you have mining operators earning around $330,000. So from this, we can kind of see the highest earners tend to be in more senior leadership roles. Therefore, you can kind of conclude that it's pretty much just a corporate game. However, when you're looking at the top 1, you'll see that it's all about starting your own company, providing value and reaping most of the rewards. But you might ask, what if you're starting from scratch? Which industry should you go into? So here are the top 5 industries that the richest people are involved in. Number 1 is mining with an average salary of $156,000. Number 2 is IT and tech at $130,000. Number 3 is financial and insurance services at $120,000. And number 4, professional and technical services at $115,000. And lastly, electricity, gas, and water services at $110,000. Alright, enough about income. If you truly want to measure wealth, net worth is something I argue is even more important. So what is net worth? Net worth is pretty much your assets and investments minus all your debt. So across all households, the median in Australia is $579,000. While the top 20% has a whopping $1.6 million in net worth, the top 10% earns $2.56 million, and the top 5%, $5.2 million. And lastly, the top 1% has a net worth of $7.7 million. Again, similar to income, we also see a big gap between the rich and the middle class here. Now, as a matter of fact, the highest 10% of households possess 44% of all wealth in Australia. And at the same time, the growth in terms of wealth is a lot bigger for the rich. Specifically, the average wealth of the highest 10% rose from $928,000 to $2 million, an increase of 126% since 2003. However, the average wealth of the lowest 60% rose just $68,000 to $80,000, an increase of only 39%. So you might ask, why are the rich so rich? They must be doing something different from the rest to get to where they are here. Well, you're right in thinking so. Those people actually own and invest in so many different asset classes that make money for them while they sleep. Now let's compare the middle class with the top 10%. For the average middle class household, 41% of their assets is actually in owner-occupied housing, meaning the majority of it is actually in their own house. 13% is in investment housing and properties, 20% in superannuation, and 19% in shares, financial, and business investments. However, it's a different story for the top 10%, so do pay attention. The majority of what they have is actually in stock investments, company ownership, and investment properties. So this suggests that the average person builds their wealth with their own home, but the richest people build their wealth using investments. And this is the one thing that I've been preaching about in my channel. If you truly want to build your wealth and live a comfortable life, you need to understand that we are living in a capitalistic world. This means you thrive with capital, meaning investments and building your own businesses. Therefore, if you haven't yet, follow my newsletter in my description down below, where I share tips on investments and businesses to fast-track your wealth growth, business, and journey. Now, superannuation is probably the most overlooked way of wealth acceleration by the middle class. However, the rich uses this so often as a way to hack their wealth to the next level using tax benefits with a super account. So for example, for Australians in the age of 25 to 40, the average super balance is $50,000. The top 25% has a super balance of $60,000, top 5% has $160,000, top 1% has only $290,000 from the age of 25 to 40. Now it's obvious how in this lower age bracket people are earning less. It's because they are in the earlier stage of their career. They haven't accumulated much. Now let's go on to the next age group of 41 to 64. Now in this age group, the average is around $180,000. The top 25% has an average balance of $220,000. The top 5% has an average super balance of $630,000. While lastly, the top 1% has a whopping $1.4 million. So as you can see, it's obvious how these people have a lot more in super balance, mainly because they have accumulated a lot. They're now in a much more senior position in their career. Next up, we have household home equity. So for home equity, the calculation we are using is the home value minus what you have in your mortgage. So in Australia, for most people, the home equity would make up the majority of their net worth. Now, among young households in the age of 25 to 40, the average home equity is $140,000. And in the top 25%, we have $180,000. And in the top 5%, we have $650,000. And in the top 1%, $1.3 million. Now let's move on to the age between 41 and 64. The average is $460,000. Top 25% is $650,000. Top 5% is $1.42 million, and top 1% is $2.77 million. Now lastly is the age group beyond 65 years old. The average is around $590,000, top 25% is $750,000, top 5% is $1.7 million, the top 1% is $2.96 million. Well, there you have it. I hope this video has provided you with all the matrix you need to understand how different social classes in Australia work. However, I'm a believer that you shouldn't compare yourself with others. This is because you'll never be satisfied and only disappointment awaits you. There's always a bigger fish than you, always someone who earns more than you. So focus on your journey and your game. Have a destination of where you want to go and keep that destination in your mind. Money is not a destination. It's just a means. Focus on the person you want to become, and all the richness in life will come to you. As always, follow me for more.